I'm Diane. This is Epic Conversations. Today we are talking with my good friend, Austin Brown. He and his wife have their own business called AB Construction. And Austin has been in business for 16 years. So we are so glad that you're joining us today because we are going to ask Austin, how did he start this business 16 years ago? So Austin, you've been a successful businessman now.
It took a while to get there.
Okay.
It didn't start out as a success, we can say that. Yeah, so we started AB Construction back in 2004.
Okay.
And at that time, we started out with, the name of it was A&B Home Improvement and Repairs, Inc.
Oh, okay.
Now, lesson number one in business, when you're thinking about a name, think about somebody that has to write a check for that.
Oh, good point.
I mean, it sounded like it really flowed to me when I came up with the name, like, oh, that's really good. And then as somebody looked at it, it's like, customers, a business friend of mine that we had a little relationship with, he's like, you might want to try shortening that because think of your customers have to write a check for that. I was like, oh, yeah. So a couple months later, we did a DBA as A&B Construction at the time. Because originally we started with, as a partner myself, and his last name started with A, and my last name started with B. So it's like, well, we knew enough to know that you want to be in the top list of the phone book.
Oh, that's
so we did A and B. That's how that got there. And just recently, was it last year? Because the partner, he probably lasted, he was about 2 years, and then things were, like I said, because we didn't start out successful because of a lack of planning and a lack of knowledge on my part, really both of our parts. We knew we could do the work. We had the skill sets to do construction, but we lacked the business smarts to know. I mean, because running like a construction business, there's a big difference between swinging a hammer and running a business. I mean,
that's a good point.
You may have the skills. I mean, because I think your background is in accounting, right? I mean, so you have the skills of accounting, but to run a business, doing accounting for other people is a whole different thing.
Yes,
so
it is.
I think that's where both you and I know the statistics about how many, we say quote unquote businesses fail, because people think that just because I'm my own boss and I'm working for myself and I make my own schedule and nobody's over me, I'm in business. Kind of, but not really. And so I think that's where we get the statistic. Was it 9 out of 10 businesses fail in the first 5 years or something? It's high.
Yeah.
I think a lot of that is because people's idea of being in business is not really being in business. There's another statistic from, I think it was the U.S. labor something or other. It said about 20% fail in the first 5 years. Now that's a big difference between 20 and 90. So my thought, where did we get that? And I kind of read through where they came up with that, and they're talking about, funding capital and all these other things. So, okay, well, they're talking about people that know business. We're not talking about somebody who just, I'm going to be my own boss. So I'm going to quit, right? So that's this. So even that, somebody that has the smarts, that know a lot more about how business is structured, how you set it up as an entity, how you tax laws, asset protection, things like that, how to fund a business. I mean, because when we started, it was like, okay, I'll put in 2,000 and you put in 2,000, 4,000. We're in business. Let's go. Okay. Slightly undercapitalized. Can I say that? Because you gotta have marketing. You gotta promote yourself. Because if you don't get out there, how are they gonna find you, right?
Right, advertising, marketing. Tell people about your business.
Right, accounting's a big one. I think a lot of people miss it on accounting, just because you can get into some serious trouble. You don't do things right. I mean, people want to I'm going to be my own boss. No, because then you've got the IRS to deal with. You've got state and local tax agencies you have to deal with. And you know what? That's their money. And try not paying your 941s on time and see how well that goes for you.
That's right.
I mean, so there's a lot you need to know. And fortunately, we did know that. We got enough counsel to get us going, but we were still woefully short on how to run a business. So fortunately, we didn't get too far behind on our state and local taxes. I mean, here in Colorado, we've got unemployment taxes, so you've got to pay those on time.
That's right.
Depending on how your business is structured. So I mean, there's a lot to learn. Besides just, I can swing a hammer, so I'm going to start my own construction business.
So what was your motive originally? I mean, what were you thinking of?
Yeah,
That's a big investment to start.
It is. Yeah, and I didn't realize that at the time how much, what a big step that was. And back to why a lot of people fail because they don't realize what all's involved in that. Yeah, so my motivation, I did construction before starting A&B. I would say 7 years. So I did 4 years as an apprenticeship right out of high school. So I was 18. So as I graduated in May of 97, I think, and then turned right around in the fall of that year. And started working with a very large construction company here in Springs at that time as an apprentice, first-year apprentice. So I went through 4 years of apprenticeship at the Carpenters Union here, and then 3 years as a journeyman. And one thing I think was that the unions here in Colorado are not as strong as they are in some other states. So to really stay working, if you wanted consistent year-round work, you had to travel to Denver. The mountains was a huge. There's a lot of money up there for ski resorts. So a lot of some of the construction work in the state, everybody's looking to save money on their projects. So obviously you're going to hire a union contractor. They pay union wages. Your bill to build the thing goes up. So there's not, you have that issue to deal with. So if you wanted to stay that as a third-year journeyman, there was a lot of people ahead of me as far as seniority. So obviously the companies are they got to be competitive too. So they're going to hire people. We're on the same pay scale. It wasn't really, when you became a journeyman, so I was a first-year journeyman. I made pretty much the same as a 10-year journeyman. So who is the company going to hire? Are they going to hire a 10-year journeyman that has his skills more developed where he can do it faster than I can? Or someone who's, see what I'm saying? It would take, I may be a journeyman, I don't know, I've got 10 years experience.
That's right.
So it's going to take me longer to do something than they would. So to keep working, I came to the realization real quick, I'm going to have to travel to Denver.
Yeah.
North Denver, Northwest Denver, and the ski resorts. And I'm like, so I started thinking about this. I'm like, I did travel to Denver a couple of times, Northwest Denver. That one was when the things started really connecting. Like, it was an hour and a half, 2 hour drive from my house one way. Yeah, one way. I'm like, well, this stinks. So, and then it was starting to talk about the mountains. And construction workers don't have the, I'm sure, you've heard of the reputation of construction workers. Rough, okay?
Yeah,
crude, rough. I hate to say the word uncouth, but they acted like that. I'm like, why are you doing that? I mean, you've got a skill that some people don't have. You're not stupid. Why are you using this kind of language? Why are you using these jokes? Why are you talking about this stuff? You act like you're on the stick somewhere.
Like some savage.
You're not a savage. You've got a skill that not everybody has, and you can really, you're smart, okay? Just in a different way than like yourself an accountant, but you're still smart.
That's right.
And so I'm like, well, I heard what they were talking about during the 8 hours when I was with them at work. So I started thinking, mountains, because this is what they do. They put 4 guys into a hotel room. That's how they provide lodging, all right, but it's 4 guys to a hotel room. I'm like, so I'm going to be in the mountains with these four guys. The only thing I could think of, and that might be this is not too pointed. I tried to tone it. I'm going to try to tone it down a little bit. My thought was pornography and prostitution. And at the, that's
Oh,
real
that's
reality. It is real because I said, I don't want to associate with that.
Mhm.
I get my 8 hours and I'm out of here. I need to refuel because just their conversation on that stuff was a drain.
Wow, that's
And to
good.
go and to spend 8 hours with them at work and then go to a hotel room
Oh,
and just continue their conversation and their lifestyle for the rest of the evening. I'm like, no thanks.
mhm.
So that's why that was my motivation to start a business was I don't want to travel to the mountains. I don't want to associate with these type of people because this is going to drain me. Just like, it says in 1 Corinthians 15:56, be not deceived. Evil communications corrupt good manners. And I did not want that. And so my thought was, my motivation, well, to keep working, but I'm not going to go to the mountains, so I'll just start my own business.
So,
Wrong motivation. Okay, great motivation for staying out of pornography and, that stuff, but wrong motivation for business.
mm,
And I think that's where a lot of people, why that statistic is so high. You've probably heard of it. I know I have. I don't like people tell me what to do, so I'm just going to start my own business.
yeah.
Wrong with it.
That's another wrong motivation.
Because, we'll talk about that later, but because if you don't understand the purpose of something,
Mhm.
you're gonna abuse it,
Exactly.
just like marriage.
Mhm.
A lot of people get married thinking, oh, this person's, oh, look at that person. I'd be so happy if they marry, if they spend love,
Mhm.
wrong motivation, because they don't understand God's purpose for marriage,
Mhm.
and how, we know the divorce rate is 50%
Yes.
or higher.
Yeah.
So, and there's another high failure rate because people don't understand the purpose of marriage. People don't understand the purpose of business.
Mhm.
So they get into it with the wrong motivation because they don't understand God's purpose. So,
Well, you're a Christian, so that made a difference in your motivation as to what's driving you initially, whether it's right or
but so within the last year, I've been doing a lot more reading, books on business and finance. And I would still think that learning what I've learned, I would still say, it was a good motivation for as staying out, not getting plugged into the world.
Mm-hmm.
But for actually, what I wish I would have done, looking back at it, was waited, maybe held tight, maybe have been able to get part-time works, doing something else, and educate myself before getting into business, and not jumping right into it. I think it was still, the motivation kind of was there, but it wasn't really knowing what I know now. When we get, we talk about the purpose,
Prepared yourself
I would have prepared better.
More.
I would have educated myself a lot more.
But you survived.
Yeah, that was God.
16 years by the grace of God.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because looking back at it, I'm like, hell no, we should have failed. Like within the first couple of years, it should have been under, really. But just because, God's watching out for us, He turns He works things together for good.
God, yeah.
Doesn't mean, He causes everything, or He allows it to happen. That wasn't God's plan for me to start the business that way. Okay? But He used it for good, and so for His glory. So, yeah.
Well, God, I am so glad, because you have a good reputation of the 16 years, all 16 years. Thank you so much, Austin, for sharing with us. And we have some more episodes coming up with Austin, so we look forward to seeing you next time. And please subscribe to the channel, share it with a friend. In the meantime, have an epic day in the Lord.